This is Coach Walter White. This is Coach Lannis Timmons. We hope you'll stay with us this week for the entire ride. We got a number of topics we want to cover. It's been a good week in high school basketball. There's some other things going on, so we want to try to cover it all. As normal as is usually the case, we want to start off with the encouraging word from the Word of God. In the book of Romans 15:4, it says, "For everything that was written in the past was written to teach us, so that through perseverance and encouragement we might have hope." And it's just telling us that all the things that we go through, things that we've gone through in the past, God has used people to get through those same circumstances, and it's encouragement, it's an example for us to continue to trust Him and push through. So check that scripture out and be encouraged. We have a number of things to cover this week. I want to quickly recognize a young man. As a result of our show, one of the parents had reached out to me, and her son's a sophomore at Princeton, really good little player in that sophomore group. His name is Kendall Phillips. And guys, we have to get these kind of things out there. This young man has been recognized by the Congress of Future Science and Technology Leaders. So it's a national program, and he's one of a select few. So he's going to be Ohio's representative for the Congress for the Future Science and Technology Leaders. And this is that STEM program, coaches, the science, technology, engineering, and math program. He's a good little player as well, point guard. Again, we always talk about lineage, comes from great stock. Both parents are wonderful people. So he's a high IQ kid, good little basketball player, sophomore, Kendall Phillips. Probably be surprised that he's getting a mention because right now he's a JV player, but he's in that sophomore group at Princeton, which is extremely talented young group of players. So we want to listen out for this young man. We know if he rolls his ankle, blows his knee out, or whatever the case may be, he's going to be all right, coaches, because academics,
yeah. We'll have an education.
He's all right. So we want to start off with that. We're going to bounce it to Coach Timmons first to hear from him about some boys basketball this week.
Good afternoon, good people. Yeah, I had the opportunity to see Moeller and St. X last night, Friday night. And I was looking for St. X to see if they could pull that win, pull that upset off, because they hadn't won a league game in the conference like we had talked about for like 5 years. And this year they're 2-3. They beat Elder and LaSalle, and that already lost to Moeller the first time they played them. So and it was a kind of close game for a little while. Then Moeller pulled away. Same way last night. They ended up winning 66-48, but at the same time, the St. X kids, they hung in there, they fought and competed, until it was over with. But I had a very interesting conversation with the TAF coach, switching schools, of course. But just talking to TAF coach, DeMarco Bradley, and he was telling me that they won 8 out of their last 10 games. But the thing really stood out for me is that out of his 12 kids, 11 of them are on the honor roll. And that's something that, we talk about all the time, like we talk about the recruitable athlete and that. So that's a good thing that we want to see. Also, he mentioned to me that it's a barbershop down there called the Community Barbershop. And he says that they feed the kids and also they cut the kids' hair.
Wow.
Yeah. So you're talking about somebody having an impact in the community and supporting the kids, in the school down there, just at the top of the shelf for me, So I just want to give a shout out to those guys. But like you said, it was some very interesting basketball games going on. this week with the boys.
Well, let me just say one thing. Girls are always a week early. They start the season a week early. They start their tournament a week early, so they had their draw for the tournament last Sunday. Top four, Dakota West, Mount Notre Dame, Mason, and Walden Hills. I want to go out on a limb right now and say that the Walden Hills bracket sectional is going to probably be the toughest, because how this thing fell out was simple. If Walnut was going to be fourth, then McCallie was jumping in that bracket. If McCallie was going to be fourth, then Walden Hills was jumping in that bracket. Obviously, nobody want to be in the Dakota West bracket, okay? And they stand away from Mount Notre Dame, even though they're not as strong as they normally are, but they're strong.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mason took the Dayton route. So they got out of here for now. And they basically, going to be playing some teams from up the Dayton way.
It's not used to them.
They're not used to it, absolutely. So I think what you're going to find now is the girl leagues are wrapping up. Okay, Walnut wrapped up the Eastern Conference on Wednesday by beating Loveland for the second time, which was a good game. Loveland jumped out to I want to say a 12-point lead.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Walnut just kept grinding, and they ended up winning by 20. So at the end of it, your leagues are being settled up for the girls. Pretty much, if they didn't settle up during the week, they settling up today, because this is the last day. So you just got some good stuff going on. McCallie and Mount Notre Dame in the GGCL, the Graded Girls Catholic League, is tied for first. I don't think unless something happens, they're going to either one or the other going to take it. Dakota West, of course, is the dog and the big dog in the Greater Miami Valley. And then, of course, you have Summit in the MEAC. I call it MEAC, the MBC. They always, I'm thinking, black colleges. They pretty much didn't won it, the last 10 years, as far as their league conference. I mean, if they miss one or two, maybe. But they pretty much dominated, and they're undefeated again. Okay. So the girls now get ready to head in the tournament next week. They start now. I'd say keep an eye on that the 4th seed Walden Hills bracket, with Princeton in that bracket, Mercy's in that bracket, McCallie in that bracket.
Wow.
That's going to be some pretty strong basketball. I had a chance to go out to see Mercy. Let me just make a little cliff note footnote. Mercy is a beautiful school building, and it's unfortunate because of the times. The school is closing, and they're going to merge with McCallie.
Sure, okay. Right.
And I'm going to tell you, hope somebody message out to the public school system, buy that building and start a school. Because that building should not be closed. Because going back to academics, that building should be housing, education for another 50 years. It's just a phenomenal construction. That's where the girls are right now. We'll be able to give more in detail about how the tournament started line up in the next couple of days, because they'll be washing out the rest of the league championships and stuff like that.
Coach, you noted Mount Notre Dame, Dakota West, Walden Hills, and Mason.
Right.
In that order, is that 1 through 4?
It's Dakota West, Mount
West is
Notre Dame. Yes, of course. Mount Notre Dame is 2, Mason is 3, and Walden is 4.
Okay, Mason's 3. Have you gotten your eyes on some of those girls?
Mason, absolutely, pretty good team. It's a solid team. There's the young lady's name, I had it written down, but apparently I've been flipping papers all day because I just got in from scouting. Mason is strong. Dakota West is the young lady. She's going to Notre Dame.
Who's that?
You're going to make my mind work. But I forgot to write it down.
Well, we know she can play.
Oh, yeah.
If she's going to Notre Dame, we know she can play.
You got, now Mount Notre Dame got 2 sophomore girls that are pretty phenomenal. I'm sure they haven't chosen a school yet. Walden Hills got the Kennedy girl, Kennedy Smiles. She's going to go to Miami so far, but she's just a junior.
So is Dakota West odds-on favorite to win
Right now.
With these four,
Right
with
now,
these four
but
teams?
with these 4 teams, I would go with the Cola West. I'm gonna be a little biased, but I think Walton Hills could play with Mount Notre Dame and Mason without a problem.
The recruit from Lakota West that's going to Notre Dame, you know what position she plays?
She's kind of a swing, a guard forward. I think she's a lefty.
So she can impact the game because she can handle the ball to some
She
degree
can
as
do
well.
both. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's always important.
She brings the ball up sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just the situation where you see in this girl level basketball just improving every year.
Coach, I have another question for you with what the game you just attended. You attended Princeton and Oak Hill.
Right.
You got to see the Princeton girls.
Yes.
What's your opinion?
I think they're a very solid team. Got 3 bigs. 3 bigs, actually, I could probably pull their names up, which I can't right here. 3 bigs, which are going to be formidable because they play an in and out game, a high-low game with the bigs. One of the bigs' name is Deasia Reed. The other big is Jasmine Smith, and the other big is Jaquel Henson.
What class?
We looking at 11th grade, the Hensman, and the other 2 are seniors.
So we have upperclassmen.
Yeah, and
Well experienced.
4 of their 5 are upperclassmen that start. And I'm gonna tell you, they play that high-low, pick and pop, pick and roll, pretty good. Now their guards are functional. You leave them open, they'll score. Period. They're functional. Unfortunately, Oak Hill didn't have the tightest defense. Something I've learned by looking at the girls. They play awful lot. They play awful lot. They don't necessarily get up in your grill and play real staunch defense in most cases, but at the same time, they play smart. So, one thing works when the other don't.
Does Princeton girls appear to be a team that can pull off a significant upset?
Oh, absolutely.
So they have the potential to make a good run.
They
get hot.
have the potential to make a good run. I mean, you go down the line, all of them can shoot. Now,
Okay.
the best shooting team I've seen this year, inside and out, has been McCollum. Okay. But from what I understand, I missed Mount Notre Dame because apparently they played a lot of games in the early part of the season. So when it was time for me to come back and scout them, scouting tournament games, their season ended last Thursday. And normally the girls, up until today, still had 3 games to go this week. So I didn't get a chance to see them, but I'm waiting for the tape to come so I can look at them.
We had the pleasure of interacting with the Princeton girls at the Impact Night at Woodlawn. Class group of young ladies, and just seeing kids up close. You sit in those bleachers and you're elevated. Everybody looks a little smaller because you're up here, but seeing those kids on eye level on the floor, they're a good looking group of athletes, aren't they, Coach?
Oh,
they have good size. They just look like athletes. I haven't seen a lot of high school basketball, but when you see a pretty good team, you say, man, if there are other teams out there that are significantly better than them, I really want to see them, because this Princeton group looks like they're capable of making a pretty solid run. They have former state championship coach Jill Phillips. She's returned, so she's coaching them again. They got a nice support group behind them, and they seem like decent young ladies. I know a few people that know some of the players from the AAU circuit, so they said some pretty good things about them. I can't say one way or the other, but just seeing them up close and personally, seem like a group of kids that can make a pretty decent run. Getting back into the boys' high school landscape, I just want to mention a real big game last night. I want to mention another point that we talked about off camera. Deer Park beat Indian Hill, so they remain undefeated. Huge game. Deer Park's coach, Indian Hill's coach, when they lost at Deer Park, his response was basically, wait till we play them there. That was the gist, and I'm paraphrasing here. But the game was really close. I understand Deer Park was down 5 points with 29 or so seconds to go in the game, so they pulled out a close victory, and they remain undefeated. The point that I wanted to make, coaches, parents, get on us as coaches. We have to report our scores.
Yes.
We have to report the statistics. We have coaches in town. I recall sitting at a game at Western Hills, and I forgot who they were playing, but the opponent apparently had a good player as well, because I was sitting next to a coach from the University of Manhattan he was here because his team was playing Xavier. And he just caught a game on his downtime. He caught the game based on the stats that he was looking at in the paper. So if you don't report the stats on these kids, I don't want to be too critical of you coaches because it's not personal, but it's doing them a disservice.
Right.
Because coaches need to see what your kids are doing. I see a pattern with some schools. We're frustrated. And I know the gamut of emotions that goes with winning and losing, but we can't be so frustrated after a loss that we don't report
Hurts
scores.
the kids.
Because it hurts the kids. So don't want to get too far gone on the soapbox, but we have to report our scores and statistics on our players. There are people out here looking for those things to recruit your children, or your players. The other games this week, Woodward, earlier in the week, Woodward's boys team beat Summit, which was a huge victory for Woodward.
At Summit.
At Summit. There's a little bit of a roller coaster going on with Woodward. They lost to Withrow by 17 this week also. So that's somewhat of a concern, but they show an ability to beat some pretty good teams, and they're still growing.
And
Western
it's
Hills last
hard. It's hard to win.
Absolutely.
At Summit gym.
Summit.
One of those old school gyms,
Yes.
which if we played in them, we'd been in heaven. But for the kids nowadays who used to these beautiful gyms, aka the new Princeton gym,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
looking at something that's college level D2,
Yeah.
D3.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But when you go into Summit, and I know this from playing, I'm coaching at Clark, you go into Summit twice a year, 9 years in a row, you hate even being in that place. I think we won one game.
And you nearly get
I know how that
claustrophobia.
You get claustrophobia.
in these smaller gyms, and I get what you're saying. And also with Summit, they have a fantastic
They have good
tradition. They have a great program. This program was coming back in the late 70s. They were coming. Dexter Bailey and some other guys that came along, the Fleming guy, the Arringtons.
Walt.
Yeah, Walt McBride. Some good
McBride.
players were coming a long way back in the 70s. So they've continued to grow. They probably like that home court advantage, that tradition of
boy.
small
They
court.
love
It's a heck of
But,
an advantage.
Yeah.
They don't like it, they
Yeah,
love it.
yeah. And so Woodward lost to Withrow by 17, which is an interesting game. Maybe it's a matchup issue because Withrow has a pretty lengthy, pretty long
6'11".
player, 6'11". I think his name is Abba Lawal.
Yeah.
So that's a interesting outcome. There were some pretty good games this week. Moeller is rolling right along. We go across the river. Cubcad is rolling right along. I think Moeller is going to be there. They'll probably take a northern bracket and
That's
not
where they
beat the
always
teams
go.
here until we
They'll
get
go
to the
to
regionals.
Yeah, always
Yeah.
go.
Go to club.
Yeah.
Go to
But they
club.
haven't lost coaches to anyone here as of yet, right?
Right.
And coach, you saw him play, and I want you to speak on that because it's almost understated and underappreciated how much of a difference it makes when you play hard. I have a simple rule, and I will say this before I bounce to you, coach. I say my first rule was play hard. My second rule was play hard in the event that you forgot the first one. Play hard.
Yeah,
Play hard. Play hard is my first and
Right.
second rule. We'll get into
Right.
playing smart and playing
Playing
intelligent,
together and all
together and
that
all that
stuff,
stuff. But
right.
play hard is the first and second rule. In the event that you forgot the first rule, the second rule is play hard, and that's how important it is to playing the game of basketball. And coach, you were speaking about Jeremiah Davenport and how hard he plays.
I call him high energy. I mean, this kid, he comes right now, diving on the floor for loose balls, getting out in the passing lane. And this kid must play some defensive back in football because his anticipation skills are really, at the top. He gets out there and just read. I tell you what he does too. He reads the passer's eyes. That's a lot of time when you read the kid's eyes with the kid with the ball. If he read his eyes, a lot of times it's gonna tell you where that next pass is going. Go ahead, what are you gonna say? What?
No, I was gonna say, when you're done.
Oh, well, I'm just, adding that. But just to throw some other kids in there, Greg Fillion with Roger Bacon High School. Even though Roger Bacon's only 5 and 15, Greg gets after it hard. Good kid, grades 3.5. Doesn't come from a great family when you start talking about the family's
Is he a
dad.
Korean kid?
No,
Okay.
He's
Roger Bacon?
Roger Bacon.
No, I'm saying
his
this-
dad.
he's
His
from
dad
Florida.
went to. No, he's from. Where is he from? You know what?
Because I was at that game last
You
night.
know
that's
what?
why I
He
asked.
might be. He might be.
Because the kid from Coleraine that played for Roger Bacon, I was at the Purcell Roger Bacon game last night.
Okay.
And kid from Coleraine actually broke his hand. And when you mentioned 3.5,
Mhm.
so here I am at the game, and I'm, of course, more Purcell biased than I am Roger Bacon. And I'm talking to this lady, and this young man got his hand broken the first minute, and I'm talking to the lady, and I said, so by after the third quarter, I said, you have a son on the team? She said, yeah. She said, his hand's broken. And I'm saying this because to show you how parents can help their children grow. And I said, oh, wow, will he be back this season? She said, it just got broken at the beginning of the game. And I said, wow, you're the calmest parent I ever came across. She said, no worries. My son's going to Toledo for engineering. So I hate that he broke his arm.
Basketball's plan B.
Plan B.
And academics is
So when you
plan
said
A.
3.5, I was
Right.
thinking maybe it was
Right.
the same kid.
Right. No, wow. But Greg Fee, he's one of those kids that get after it too. Cameron Harris, kid out of Finneytown, about 6'7". You know, I like some things he was doing, getting around the basket, rebounding, post move, up and under, you know, drop stepping, and just getting after it hard so far as changing shots too on defense. Like I say, he's 6'7", he's long, with a lot of length. Lorenzo Sparks out of North College Hill. This kid, man, you talking about, I call him Mr. In and Out, because he would go to the left, he would go to the right, he'd pull up, slash. I mean, this kid gets out, defensively, he gets after it too. De'Arius Barker, they call him Diesel, kid out of North College Hill as well. Diesel is probably one of the better one-on-one players you're going to find for a high school kid. And he's just a sophomore too. And, you know, he gets after it. They have a freshman, Caden Warner. Caden Warner, I mean, this kid, like Coach Shannon Miner said, this kid will run through a brick wall for you. And you could just see and plus he's poised. And I just like his approach with the game. You can see this kid probably watches a lot of basketball too, just the way he, you know, was playing. Michael Thomas, Sean Ely, DeShante Hawkins. These are Clark kids. I seen them play North College Hill Tuesday. North College Hill ended up winning 68-60. Matter of fact, they are on a 17-game winning streak.
Wow.
North College Hill is. And when you start talking about coaches of the year, I know Steve Gentry's doing a great job, but Shannon Miner's doing a great job with his kids.
Right.
I love how they play together. They seem like they kind of love playing with each other. And that's always a difference maker. And I like how they carry themselves with class. And like I said, they compete at a high level. So just talking about, you know, Coach Miner. But getting back to the kids from Clark, Michael Thomas, 6'5" sophomore. Sean Ely, he's a 5'10" sophomore. And DeShante Hawkins, he is a 5'8" junior. But these kids, they get after. I was really impressed with them. I ended up doing a report on the game. And just because I was just watching them, man, they just took it to another level. Terry Doom, I know we talked about him a number of times. Woodward kid, steps up, go hard, as we know in the post. DJ Bruton. All right, this kid that transferred from Mount Healthy, he's over at Hughes.
Yes.
Yes,
He put up some numbers.
he put up some numbers too. Plus, get after rebounds real well for a kid his height, you know, in size. You know they got the tournament draw coming up for the boys this coming Sunday. Yeah,
Right.
tomorrow. Yeah, so matter of fact, I'm gonna go out to. Want to talk about Gamma too. Want to talk about Gamma. They are 8-0 in the league,
Wow.
but they are 9-8 overall. Coach Berto Allen played his first 11 games with only 5 players. He only had 5 players. They lost to Aiken, Schroeder, Clark, Cincinnati Christian, Little Miami without those kids. Now he's playing with all his kids, and they are 5-1. His first 13 games, 12 of them were on the road.
Wow.
So you talking about persevering, man, those kids. And Coach Berto Allen does a good job with his kids. I like how he communicates with them. Don't want to show them up or whatever, just kind of talk to them. So I just like what Coach Allen is doing over there at Gamble.
If I may interject just a couple of things. First thing, getting back to Moeller, you said they were undefeated here. From the girls' side, Walton Hills is undefeated in the state of Ohio. They lost their one game in the Christmas tournament down at in Florida to Hoover.
Right.
18, I think they moved up in the girls' rankings in the country. And they were toe-to-toe with them, but Hoover just had a little bit more of that outside shooting. Second thing, if I may just skew a little bit towards the boys, we talk about how this is academically and athletically good for these kids. I was at the Purcell Roger Bacon game last night, and that's a good series for the city. Okay, those are not suburban teams; they're city teams. They're Catholic, but the energy, that the culture and the positive flow came from that game. And I want to defer to our host here, but you know, I think at some point we should talk about the elephant in the room.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're getting there.
And I wanted to
absolutely
preface the Purcell Roger Bacon behavior and respect, even though there's a tough rivalry, because we're going into another stratosphere with these kids in sports, and it's our job as adults to make sure that stratosphere is suppressed.
And we're going to get there, Coach White. You can safely say that rival that you're talking about, you can have a fellowship and pizza party afterwards.
Exactly.
But this other one we're going to talk about, there'll be no fellowshipping and interaction until there's some intervention. There are a lot of issues that need to be addressed with that elephant in the room we'll talk about here in just a minute. I wish we could be there in the room to give you some live coverage of the drawings tomorrow. If you never experienced it, it's such a strategy that goes with where you're seated and where you get to go. Some teams who feel like they're not going to win in any tournament games, they'll take a game that they might win in the tournament knowing they're getting ready to play over the second game, but they want to get a tournament victory. So it's interesting how teams strategize as to where they go. The teams that have the seedings get to go on the board, and you pick according to where you think your team best fits in. You might be surprised someone may jump on your bracket because of styles. As they say in boxing, styles make fights. These matchups, we may have a better chance playing your team than his team, although your team is thought to be better, has a better record for the season and all of that. And as I look at these different divisions, guys, it is a lot of competitive basketball that's going to be played. So I encourage you to get your tickets for these sectional tournaments. When you look at from Division I, just starting at the top here, you have Princeton and Moeller coming in at 1 and 2. We know, again, Moeller is likely, as they've done traditionally, to go to Columbus, which is smart, but they'll probably bump heads with some of these teams down here that are likely to advance in the tournament. This thing is Moeller's, I still think personally, the best team in the city. I'm pulling for Princeton, and I'll say that on our show, but I think Moeller is the best team on the Division I level in this city right now. But they're 1 and 2, Princeton is 1. Mason has held serve. I think we talked about it our last show how Mason had taken it on the chin, from with a couple of teams, but they fought back and they're still holding the 3 spot. So they're going to be up there strategizing tomorrow as to where they're going to get in there. Oak Hills is 4. Walnut Hills could easily get one of those top 4 seeds. Tomorrow we'll see how that shakes out. Lakota East, who's played some teams close. St. Xavier, Coach, you talked about them not winning, a game in conference in years, and they won a few this year. They're 7th on that Division I level. When you get into the tournament, you also, I keep saying the lack of a shot clock is the great equalizer in high school basketball. If you can control the tempo, you've got good guard play. I say that because at number 8 you have Winton Woods with the Greg Triple kid. This kid can control the entire pace of the game. You get hot and play well during the tournament, a good player like that may catapult you to a couple of victories. LaSalle, steady, presence. They're coming in at number 9, and a sleeper in this whole thing is 10 with the West Claremont team. So all 10 teams in the Division I bracket are good. When you look at this Division II bracket, and I'll try to hurry through these, Indian Hill is down there at number 5, Woodward is 6, Wyoming is 7. You know, you have Schroeder at the bottom, Aiken, then Fenwick at 10, 9, 8, and then the top 4, Summit is 4, Taft is 3, Hughes is 2,
That's tough.
and McNicholas
Is
1.
one.
That is a log jam of talented basketball.
And if I may interject real quick, because McNicholas lost the Baton last night, Purcell and McNick, and the only team that had originally beat McNick was Purcell, will be playing for the GCL Co-Ed South Championship next Saturday.
Gonna be, I mean, and this thing is shaking out, you know, it's just as a way of shaking yourself out when these kids, you roll the ball out and let them play on that Division III level. Coach, your point is well taken. Shannon Minor is basically fighting for that Division III Coach of the Year honor with Steve Gentry.
Yep.
Shannon's been on an 18 or so game winning streak, and I think they're 18
Steve
and
is
2.
on a 19.
But Steve was 19. And with Deer Park, they
That's
just
tough
pulled
right
out a big one last night at Indian Hill. So that's really interesting. If you look at this Division III landscape, Clark is down there at 10. Georgetown is 9. Cincinnati Country Day is basically they're tied. They have them tied at 7. So 2 teams are tied at 7. Cincinnati Christian, Cincinnati Country Day. Reading has a standout player that transferred. He's there at 6. Middletown Madison is 5. They have 2 teams tied at 3, so they don't have a 4. They're 3 and 3. Madeira and North College Hill. And then you have Purcell, Marion, and Deer Park. I want to see that matchup.
That's the one I want to see.
That's the matchup. If they bump heads, folks, you want to go see Purcell, Marion, and Deer Park play basketball.
And one other caveat to that right there. When I was coaching at Purcell and Clark, who was always our number 1 menace? Gentry and Reggie.
Yeah, and Stroke.
At Stroke.
Yes.
So now, different spots,
Yeah.
same coaches. So the same coaches always bring it
Yeah.
every year with these teams.
And make no mistake about it, you have coaching rivals, just like you have player rivals. It needs to be healthy, and sometimes it isn't, but it needs to be healthy. You know what I'm saying, Coach. Sometimes it isn't, but there's a coaching rivalry too. You do well in your programs, and maybe you get in another program, and this person over here, this team has been your nemesis, and you want to keep on proving that you're king of the hill, so to speak. So that's big, and I believe we're talking Scott Kerr versus Steve Gentry. So that should be pretty interesting, and it's been ongoing. So, and then down at the 4 level, I don't know a lot about these teams. We talked about Gamble, so we want to, and the coach covered them here a little bit earlier. Gamble is number 2 in the Division 4, and you have some other schools we don't know a lot about. Laughlin is in there at 5. Cincinnati College Prep is 8. Euler is 7. So New Miami, which is up there toward Hamilton, they're coming in at number 6. Haven't seen a lot of basketball on that level. Know a little bit about Gamble. Know a little bit about Laughlin. There's so much competitive basketball going on in those top 3 divisions this year. I'm not encouraging you to slight the Division 4 group, but if given the opportunity to go see the 3, 2, 1 divisions and all of those talented teams in that log jam, I'm probably going to go to one of those games this year, just because I want to see Purcell and Deer Park play. I want to see Princeton bump heads with Moeller at whatever point that might be if they both advance. I want to see North College Hill, bump heads with one of those teams. So it's a lot of talented basketball. So after tomorrow, we'll know a lot more. And again, it would be great if we here at the Herald could get permission to get in the room. I guess every newspaper would want to do that, so it's unlikely that it's going to happen. But how cool would it be to get in the room and see the board and the strategies that go on with the team?
We can work that out.
Yeah.
But Coach, go back to Division 2. I want to point out something.
Okay, here you go.
All right, you look down at Aiken and look down at Schroeder, okay, and they getting votes in the top 10, right?
Yes.
Aiken is 3 and 5 in the league. Schroeder is 1 and 7, and they got a vote to get in, the 10th spot.
Yeah.
Let you know about the CMAC. That
Yes,
tell you a
it
lot
does.
about that
It really does.
conference.
Getting strong.
And
It
you
really
gotta
does.
look at that, and I forgot to mention that Taft, right now, they're in first place. They can win the lead outright.
Yeah.
Coming up this week. Hughes can, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Coach, doesn't Tav have the #1 scorer in the city? Is it Derek Hurd?
Ooh,
I
man.
believe
This
Tav.
kid, he came from Schroeder, and he had
Okay.
to sit out 11 games. And I was watching them because I went to see the Hughes-Taft game last Friday. And when I seen that kid, I said, who's this number 10? I said, he looked familiar. And last year, I went out to Princeton and watched Schroeder and Roger Bacon in a tournament game. It was it was a sectional championship, matter of fact. And I seen this kid, and he was doing work. He probably ended up with about 16 points, somewhere like that. So, the first time I seen Taft play against Woodward, he wasn't there. So when I seen this kid against Hughes, he was going to the basket, double clutching, hitting threes. He ended up with, I think, 16 points that night. So you talking about an addition to, and especially at this time of year, getting ready to go into the tournament. Man, this guy's like a Christmas gift.
Absolutely, and I mentioned it, Coach, because I know you've seen them a little more than I have. I saw him against Woodward, and he wasn't there.
Right.
But now this kid is averaging
Steps up.
25 points per game, which leads the city in scoring. So you add him to Krishan Stringer,
Right.
who's 6th in the city in scoring with Taft as well at 22 a game. You got 2 kids getting you almost 50 points a game. That's and they handle the basketball. So again, when you get into the tournament, you guys know on any level, good guards win championships.
Coach, let me say this. Deshaun Lawrence, DeMarco Bradley Jr., when you start talking about guards,
Yes.
maintaining the clock and just making sure their kids are getting in their sets, these 2 kids do a great job. Plus the Lawrence kids, now he's going to University of Arkansas Pine Bluff
Okay.
for football. He got a full scholarship. Coach Bradley was telling me that today.
And I was going there, Coach. I wasn't done. I started with those guys because their numbers jump out at you. But little DeMarco
Yeah.
is having a fantastic season. That's Coach DeMarco,
Right.
wife Erica, just wonderful people. That's their son. Saw him play last year, and the development from just last year to this year, he was a good little player last year.
Right.
But his poise, his command of his team, it's different level this year. So now you're looking at 3 backcourt guys.
Right,
When you
right.
think about DeMarco and Stringer and Hurd, I'm fearful if I'm in that bracket, because the way they play defense, their tradition, they expect to win, and you're not gonna talk about it. As we say, you're gonna be about it. If you beat them, you're gonna have to beat them. You're not gonna talk about beating them. You got to show up and outplay them. So now that they have this backcourt, three-headed monster, truthfully, they're going to be an interesting team to watch in the
But
tournament.
you know what's so crazy? Coach Bradley was telling me that his son and Stringer are football guys. They got Ohio State, Florida, you name them. These guys are, being looked at.
Okay.
Yeah. But go ahead, Coach.
No, I just want to say real quick, because I'm going to have to get out of here, because I actually have to announce the Gabe Robinson game over at Walden Hill.
Oh, okay.
So I'm sorry that I have to do this, but, time is always tight in America.
Yeah.
But I wanted to say, let's not forget Gabe Robinson. 18 years ago, he passed away while he was playing for Walden Hills. He was a great kid, a great athlete. Unfortunately, in the last 4 or 5 years, both his parents passed away.
Jackie, his dad died?
Jackie died too.
He played in my league when I was at Western Hills,
Right,
so his
right.
dad used to come.
Yeah.
I knew Gabe from that too.
Yeah. So great family. This fundraiser being kept going by Josh Harding, who is now the district AD for the Cincinnati Public Schools.
Okay.
And so I'm over there. But I wanted just to let our host segue us into the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
So
Here we go.
So I can get on out.
Here we go. And Coach, that's wonderful about Gabe. I hope
Yeah.
people are made aware of that history and what happened with the young man, and the continuing effort to keep his memory alive and honor that kid and his family.
And that's
It's
a scholarship.
Wonderful young man.
Fundraiser.
Yeah.
He
And folks, to talk about the elephant in the room, we get Coach Walter White involved before he leaves. We're talking about what happened at this week's, I believe it was earlier in the week, or was it last
Friday.
Friday.
St. Xavier.
St. Xavier and Elder at Elder's facility. Where we've gotten in this country, I'm going to blame it all on the president, but it seems like we are emboldened to say some things we might have kept a little suppressed into ourselves. We've been so bold to say some things that are so hurtful and disrespectful, they're so divisive. When you think about where we are as a society, you think you're making progress. You know, and guys, of all the times, Black History Month, I'm just speaking on that a little bit. If you put these kids in a sandbox, they're going to play without all of that foolishness that goes on. At this game, Elder versus St. X, there's an Asian kid and an African American kid, and the student body was just giving these kids fists. They were saying PF Chang to the Asian kid, open your eyes, USA, go talking about playing chess. With the black kid, they were making references to being fat, but the other stereotypical nonsense was about welfare and crack cocaine addiction. And the problem that I have with it, and I'll bounce to you guys for your opinions, I have a major problem with it because I think a lot of this poison comes from the adults either feeding it into the kids or not correcting it when it's obvious. As a parent myself, it's very rare that a teacher or anybody can come and tell me something about one of my kids that I've never seen. We know a lot of these things, but when we turn a blind eye to it, silence is acceptance, and we're not teaching our kids. And then you downplay it and say they're 16 and 17-year-old kids doing stupid things where we're being bound over in adult court for those kinds of behaviors. You're competent at the age of 14, and this foolishness really needs to stop. We need to be more responsible as adults. Guys, I'm going to bounce to you guys, and I'd like to close it out with another comment on a solution.
I'm going to make mine real simple because I worked on that story here at the Herald this week, and I talked to a lot of the parties. At the end of the day, it started in the beginning of the game. It went all the way through to the end of the game. The arena was packed. It's on the parents. Call it what you want to call it. It's on the coach and the parents. Those kids should have been escorted out of there the first time they started that nonsense. Now, I'm not going to get into any names because you know who you are. You are the ones responsible for those kids. That game should have been stopped. They should have been escorted out, and then the game could have continued on. But it went on for 4 quarters, not 2, like was reported in the paper.
Exactly.
It started in the beginning. It went all the way to the end. How dare parents? And then you expect me or anybody else of color to come to Elder and pay to come to a game? Absolutely not. That is not acceptable. You fix it, we'll be back. Until you fix it, we won't be back. And I got to go.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you, Coach. The other thing to piggyback on what Coach was saying for me is there was a mention by the administration at Elder that implied that it happened in the third quarter. Was addressed immediately. Well, the parents, with all of this is in the paper, so we could probably even mention names. I'll refrain from doing so. But the African American kid's parent said it happened in the first quarter, and it wasn't addressed until the third quarter. Now, how sickening is that for a minority person, whatever you are, to be whatever minority group you're a part of, to sit there and have to endure that for almost an entire basketball game and not have the so-called leaders do anything and let the kids continue to just run wild with those types of sayings. You know, there are some other sayings that go on that are belittling and condescending that aren't always talked about. You know, for instance, you know, you will work for us one day. You hear those kinds of chants in some of these games as well, and that's minimized as if it's not that big a deal. And maybe that is a fact, but the way it's being said is a very demeaning, intentionally condescending type of thing, and it needs to be stopped. Coach, I want to get your opinion on it. Again, I have a kind of a summary closing remark that I'd like to make, and I also like to point out what one of our local coaches, what his effort is to sort of bridge the gap and make this thing better?
Well, as a former teacher, retired teacher, coach, my biggest issue was that you got people, I'm talking about the teachers, administration, what have you, they are right there. And they can see who it is, they can hear who it is, and they don't do a thing. Because to me, when I see that, you letting the kids know, hey, it's okay. It's a tradition. You know, your mama did it, your uncle did it, everybody done it.
Right.
That played within the, I hate to say it, but I'm gonna call it like it is, the GCL. That's where it normally comes from. When I coached at Western Hills, we used to play elder. I'm gonna tell the truth, I never heard a racial slur. I never heard one. Not saying that they didn't, but I never heard one. I heard other people say that they heard it, you know. And then some of my kids, you know, I would ask them and say, no, Coach Timmons, you know, we weren't called, you know, out of our name,
Right.
you know. But to me, it's just like you said in the sandbox. You know, when you see kids playing ball, and that's all they doing is playing ball, just playing, that's all they doing.
Right.
You know, they don't put in none of that other stuff that some of these parents be teaching these kids. You know, and to me, I think they teach it because you're too good at it at a young age
Right.
for you to do it. You know,
Coach,
and then when you start talking about your peers, putting them in it too.
Right.
They hearing it at home, you hearing it at home. So now you put all of them together, anything can happen from there. So my whole thing is that I like to see these teachers, administrators step up their game. I'm not going to blame the coach because you can't. It's hard for you to coach and monitor a kid that don't have anything to do with your team. So, but my whole thing, like I said, I want to see teachers step up. I want to see administrators step up, and like what you guys said, the parents too. You know, I want to see them step up. You're at the game. You know these kids. It might not be your kid, but that kid might play with your child.
And Coach, to my point, when I say we know some things about our kids, it's just hard for you to tell most of us things about our kids, even if they're bad. You know, he's smart mouth or she's a this in school that we haven't seen at some point in time in our homes. And what I'm saying, these behaviors, there's some things going on in some of these homes that we won't be privy to. But you can guarantee some of this stuff reveals its ugly head in some of our homes. And then it's transferring into our society, and there are going to be a lot of problems, a lot of, you know, emotional pain going on, a lot of physical stuff is going to happen because people aren't just going to tolerate that kind of foolishness. They're, you know, and when I said earlier about there being this sense of being emboldened by people because of our leadership or lack thereof, as I would say with our president, it's not just that, because if you go back to a couple of years ago before President Trump got the position, that thing that happened at Kings was prior to him coming into leadership. We actually saw those kids play at Woodlawn's gym, but they didn't have the nerve to wear some of the stuff they wore. But these kids have been recently called out from Kings, from high school kids in a rec league, wearing jerseys that says Coon on the back, jerseys that have said Negro, but it's spelled K-N-E space G-R-O-W. That's being created, but it's as insulting as it could possibly be. And parents saw it, coaches saw it, fans of that organization saw it, peers saw it, and nobody spoke up. You know, and it's going to get worse before it gets better if we continue to remain silent. There's another example that's gotten some momentum. The teacher at Mason had talked about a kid, you know, being lynched. The kind of language that is just insulting, you know, to folks. And I want to say something that I think might help. Coach Ricardo Hill, I believe he has some, and I don't know what his solution is, but I want to mention him because I know he had suggested he had a solution to the coaches and the communities and people coming together. We can get with him to find out what his solution is. Maybe we can invite him on and facilitate that process. What I think would help us, it has a lot to do, it's an exercise we did. I was blessed to do diversity training in the juvenile court system for a couple of years with a coworker. And we did this exercise called the waterline exercise. The things that are below the surface that you can never know about someone. The only way you're going to get to know those things that are below the surface is to sit down and get to know the people, the person, and have that conversation. When we do that, we'll find out that black, white, red, brown, we believe in doing our homework. We believe in curfews. We believe in praying and having dinner together. We believe in higher education. We believe in going to work. We believe in marriage. We believe in some of the same values that the rest of society believes in, but we don't sit down and get to know what's beneath what you think you know about me on the surface. So until we sit down and fellowship and break bread, and I feel like it's an appropriate closing because the way we open up starts out with God and encouraging words from God. This thing comes right back to we're going to have to give judgment for the deeds we do in our bodies. We're not going to go to heaven. I don't want to get to preaching with this thing. I don't think we're going to go to heaven. We're going to have separation. You know, blacks here over here, whites over there, and Asians over here, and all of that foolishness. The Bible talks about unity. You know, God, the body of believers is all about unity. So we need to come together and have a discussion, a real discussion about each other, and let's respect our differences and respectfully even disagree. But we can't continue to function this way and think we're going to have a harmonious society, because we're going to be working next to people that I know hates my guts. I remember you from the Elder fan base. I remember you from the Kings situation. These things carry over to the workforce. Cincinnati is a small city, and we tend to know a lot more about each other than people do in some of the other cities that are across our country, because we are a small city. This thing can be corrected, but we have to do some soul searching, look in the mirror, and say, I'm willing to sit down, admit my faults and shortcomings, and make a committed effort to grow and improve and get to know you and love you as I would my own, and make a difference in society. This stuff is too divisive, and it's sad. As a grandparent, my kids are young adults. I'm concerned about them, sure, but I have grandkids that are under 10. I am truly concerned with the plight of our society with this kind of madness going on, because Elder High School and St. Xavier and some of the other schools are a rock throw away from where many of us reside. Again, it's a small city. And I hope we can sit down and facilitate a discussion about the waterline exercise and the things that we just don't know about each other that are below the surface. They're invisible until we sit down and reveal our hearts and open our homes and discuss these things. So we hope you enjoyed this week's show. We want to cover various topics. We thank the leadership here at Cincinnati Herald for endorsing us and our ability to cover different and real topics. We welcome your feedback. If you look at the screen and see our contact scrolling down, please reach out to us and just give us some suggestions, thoughts, ideas as to future shows and how we need to proceed. We want to, before we close out, we want to mention this week's recruitable student athlete. When we say recruitable, there's emphasis placed on recruitable. Kids that are handling their business in the classroom, so when the coach does come to see you play, I can actually sign you because you're qualified to get in my program. And I had the pleasure this past week of going to Winton Woods senior night. They played, I believe it was Seton. Interesting game. That being neither here nor there were two young ladies, and I feel so blessed to have gone because I was supposed to see both of these young ladies. As I said, I was actually sitting in the presence of both of these girls' parents. I had no idea. I want to mention two young ladies, Brianna Ball, 3.0, being recruited right now by Texas Corpus Christi. This kid can play. This kid is going to help a program when she's around other players that can really play. She's going to be a plus. She did a Euro step, and the ref called it because I don't think he had seen it before. It was a pretty special play, but she's got good size, good height, good IQ for the game. And we want to mention Brianna Ball as this week's recruitable student athlete. In addition to her, I believe I'm pronouncing it correctly, Aria Gaines. She's a center for Winton Woods. Really good size girl, size and height. She's going to get in better shape as she goes in that grueling college schedule. High IQ for the game, great kid. She's being recruited by Akron and Youngstown State. She has a 3.8 GP. Yeah. So we want to shout out to these two wonderful young ladies and their families. Hope we can be of some assistance to your effort to get going with your college careers. Again, Brianna Ball and Aria Gaines, Wentwood standouts. Look out for them, and let's get out and support them, and just get behind these kids, and let's see what it does for them. I think a little encouragement here or there can change the world. So thanks for joining us this week at the Cincinnati Herald's Weekly High School Basketball Report. We'll see you the next time.